the funkyforty podcast about knitting, crochet, sewing, embroidery, spinning, dyeing, anything else that seems a good idea at the time. Sorry, my cats, two of my cats are here, so I expect they'll make an appearance. I'm coming to you from rural North Yorkshire in the north of England, where I live with my 3 daughters, my husband, and our 3 cats. This is Clyde, who I was hoping he would meet last time. Here he is. Isn't he gorgeous? So, if you watched the last episode and you're watching again, fab, thank you so much. If this is your first one, then you haven't missed much. There's only one small episode that I've already done, so you can go back and watch that if you like. So, I'm going to start off with, I'm going to put on the screen where you can find me. I'm going to start off with a segment called Where Are They Now?, which is a catch-up on the projects you saw last time. Before I do that, we're going to have a little visit from cat number 2. who I hope is not going to be too disruptive. This is Shiloh, named after the Neil Diamond song about his imaginary friend. She's very beautiful, very distracting. So, where are they now? The projects we talked about last week. First of all, let's go with the socks. So I showed you the socks I was doing for the Boxer Socks cowl for March, and for the Hearts and Heels cowl for the Happy Knitting podcast. So I had started them, I was about that far into them, I think. I decided to do the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern on them because the pooling wasn't working out how I'd hoped. So I made a right dog's dinner of these socks. I got all the way to the end of the sock. I turned the heel with the German short row heel, and then I thought I'll put that row of hearts in that I thought I would do. Well, that was a mistake. First of all, you know this yarn I showed you the yarn. It's in a ball where 2 lots come off at once. So doing the heel, I was in enough of a mess anyway, because there's 2 lots coming off the ball at once, and I was only knitting with one, so I got the other one in a right angle. Once I've got that sorted out, I then introduced 2 more balls because I was doing colour work on each sock. So that got in a real tangle, and I got about 4 rows into that pattern. And I realised that this is really not the right place to put this set of hearts at all, a bit of colour work. In the actual pattern that the hearts come from, there's a heel flap and gusset, so it's above that, a really good place to put it. Whereas I just put it straight above the heel turn, which is the tightest part of the sock on the foot. So it hardly went on my foot at all, and when it did, it was really stretched tight, so it was going to be distorted. It wasn't going to be nice at all, and I was crossing myself for being so stupid as to do it there. So I started to tink it back bit by bit, but it with colour work, going back stitch by stitch is really annoying. So I took one of them and I just ripped it out. Oh, that was a big mistake, because then I had to try and get it all back on the needles, and it was horrible. It ruined last Saturday, it really did. And as a result, because it was just after the heel turn as well, I had 2 holes, massive holes either side of the heel, which I had to sew up. So the other one I tinked back row by row, stitch by stitch. Anyway, so I then magically started to get the pooling that I was after. Look at this! A little bit of gorgeous pooling. I absolutely loved it. But sadly, it stopped, and we went back to the normal knitting. But at this point, I kept thinking every row I was doing, every round I was thinking, it's going to go, they're getting shorter. These little repeats are getting shorter. It's going to go mad again. It's going to be brilliant. And it never did. And then I looked at it and thought, oh, I'm ready for the rib now. So I never did get my row of hearts in. I'm a bit disappointed about that. It is what it is. So then went on to a 1x1 twisted rib. There it is. So that's the March socks finished. The yarn was, for those who didn't see it last week, Shop and Vol Flying Saucer. Shopple, sorry. And the colourway is Sixtung in pink. And I've used a 2.75mm. Now, I've got some viewers in the USA. So 2.75mm is a size 2, US size 2 needle for that, which I use for almost all my socks. So that's the yarn. I've got quite a lot left actually. So that'll make some minis for me and my friend. So yeah, pretty happy with those. The yarn is really nice and soft. It didn't pull as I expected, but it did occur to me that expecting a certain type of pooling was really a bit of a big ask and a very bold claim from the company. Because if you think about it, you could be knitting socks on everything from a 2mm, which is a US size 0, right up to a 3mm, which is a US size 3. And you could be using 56 stitches up to 72 or even more. So trying to get something that will pool in a certain way for all of those variations, I can't imagine how that's even possible. Maybe the dyers and dyers listening might be able to tell me how that would be you'd even start with that. But so I am happy with the finished project. It's got cat hairs on it, of course, as has everything in this house. But I'm happy with it, and it's going to go away in my box now, and I won't see it again until the end of the year. So what else did you see last time? You saw my Tentacula shawl, which is a pattern on Ravelry. It's not a free pattern, it's a paid for pattern. It's called the Venomous Tentacula. Any of my projects, I'm really good at updating my project pages, so you can look at the you can look there and see them. So there it is, Jennifer Dassau. I've got to here. I put a little stitch marker on to show me where I've got to here, and I've now gone all the way to the midpoint, which I'm holding here, and all the way up to here. So I went with my friend to a lovely shop called Bead in Harrogate because she needs to get some more beads for hers. And although I'd already got beads, they're really, really subtle and you can't really see them. So I bought some feature beads, 6 of these lovely little beauties. Can you see that? So I've got 6 of those, and you need 3 for each repeat. So I did 3 on the last increased repeat and 3 on the first decreased repeat. So you can just kind of see them there. They look quite nice. I'm pleased with them actually. I would have loved to have done them all the way through, but although they were very reasonable, they're only 20 pence each, it would have cost me about £24 or something to put them in the whole thing. So I've now started coming back. You can see where the decreases are occurring. I love it and it's going fine, and I am doing 1 repeat every day. That's something I do when I'm not hugely in love with the project and I'm not sort of spontaneously wanting to work on it all the time. I give myself a certain amount of work to do on it each day, and then 1 of 3 things will happen. Either I'll just plod through that 1 repeat a day and get it done, or else I'll fall back in love with it and want to do it all the time, or else I'll hate it and I'll just frog it. But it's the first of those that's happened, so I'm still doing 1 repeat a day. But it's the size of it that's worrying me. It's tiny. But at the moment, it's barely even, it's not even going to tie. But it's garter stitch, and I know that means it'll block out really well. But you slip the first stitch of every row, and I think that's going to limit the blocking. But even so, I think it will go quite a way. So I'm confident that it will still go to a decent size for me. So that's where that is. By the time I podcast again, and I've decided I'm going to podcast probably every 2 weeks, if I can wait that long, because to be honest, I've been giddy as a kipper, having thought about it for months, having finally done the first podcast. I was so giddy I couldn't wait to do another one. So I will wait probably 2 weeks so I've got something to show you. But so that will be done by the time I podcast again. And if I can manage to block it, I'm not the best blocker, then it'll be ready to show you. So I've got some notes here. I didn't have them last week, but I'm doing it this week. What else did I show you last week? I showed you my 365 buttons. So the one project where you put a button on every day, or a piece of embroidery. Well, that's got a few more bits and pieces since last time. Oh, the camel's up the wrong way. Let me put him up the right way. So you can see that if you happen to remember from last time, that's new. And yeah, I wouldn't say I'd add to it every day. And the great thing about it is, because at the beginning it was just kind of 1 button, and your attention was drawn to that 1 button, and if it didn't look quite right, or the embroidery wasn't quite nice, it looked a bit weird. But now it's becoming much more of a sort of a cohesive block, and once it's completely full, because this is 2 months into a 12-month project, once it's completely full, it'll look so different. So little mistakes, bits that don't look so good, doesn't matter, because you can just change them like tattoo fixers. You can change them and make them into something better. So I'm really, really enjoying that. Again, I'll put the links to that. If there's anybody else who'd like to take part in that, then do let me know, either on here or on Ravelry. I'll talk about Ravelry in a minute, because we can start a little thread and just follow each other's progress. You don't have to start on the 1st of January or anything. You can start any time you like and just get involved and just carry it on. We've still got 10 months. You know, I've still got 10 months left of mine, so that's 10 months to do things together. So if you fancy doing one, let me know. I'll start a thread and we can just do it together. But it is really good fun, really inspiring. And the other thing I showed you last time was my kind of weekender blanket. So I was doing the crochet motifs. I've put done another two. So that brings me up to 18. And I'm going to keep going till I'm about 30, and then I'm going to lay them all out on the floor and decide what to do next. So that's another thing. If I can probably do 2 a week, just plod away at it. It's all my blankets are a very long-term project. I'm not in any hurry to get them done. So that's where are they now. New whips on the block, new things I've started since I spoke to you last. I've got the first project is inspired by Danny's mum. Let me get my tea. I've got some chocolate orange tea with a splash of milk, and it's pretty weird, but I like it. So Danny from Little Bobbins Knits podcast, her mum comes on quite a bit, and she's lovely. Maybe they did tell us her name at one point, but I didn't catch it, so she's just Danny's mum to me. She went on a workshop. Jenny Chorley, I think her name is, and Jessie Chorley, sorry, I knew I hadn't got that right. Jessie Chorley, who does this amazing sewing, quilting type stuff. She went on a workshop, she came back really inspired, and she did some work. But recently she's done some more stuff for Danny, and I saw it and I just got completely inspired by it. Now I really oughtn't to link Jessie Chorley in my project directly because she might sue, but I've started a new project and I want to show it to you because I want to inspire you, but not because it's a great project, just in fact because it's not. I've decided to do this, and it's free form, it's sewing, I'm going for the 4 C's look. It's cluttered, clumsy, clashing, and I can't remember what the 4 C is. I'll think of it. So this is my project. So you can see there are different fabrics, different colours, different all sorts. There's some satin stitch in the bottom left. Is that the bottom left or the bottom right? I don't know. There's some buttons sewn. There's quite a lot of buttons sewn on. There's bits of this stuff here is bits of just offcuts for when I've done patchwork in the past, and where bits have looked a bit ugly, I've just stuck a button over the top. I've done a bit of enhancement. It's very, very cluttered and clumsy and random, chaotic. So I'm showing you that not because I think you'll be impressed by it, but because I'm enjoying it and I don't actually care what anybody else thinks. What's going to happen with that is I'm going to pick that up every time I fancy it. I'm going to do whatever stitch pattern or sewing or use any fabric, tiny little offcuts of fabric or off little bits of embroidery thread that I've got left over from something else. I'm just going to use them, just make something up, and I'll have a lot of fun with it. And then when I've got bored of it, or it feels like it's finished, I'll make a bag out of it. And then every time I pick up that project, I'll remember the fun I had doing it. And you know what? There's no point in that entire process where I need anybody else to like it. And that's why I wanted to show it to you, because lots of people don't sew because they don't enjoy it, and I completely agree with that. You know, hobby time is not a time to do something you don't like. But if there's anybody who's not sewing because they're not good at it, then I just like to assert that I don't think that's valid. It doesn't matter if you're good at it. I was raised with the phrase, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. Well, I think that if a craft's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly at first. And even if you continue to do it poorly, it doesn't matter, because if you enjoy it, that's all that matters. So I'll continue to show you bits and pieces of that as I go along, but don't feel it under any pressure to like it at any point, but do feel potentially the urge to do something of your own and not worry about whether anybody else likes it or not. Okay, I started a new pair of socks as well. I have a friend who doesn't craft, but she's very, very knit worthy. And she has lovely big feet. I'm going to get my money's worth out of the yarn with this pair of socks. So I started them a couple of days ago. Again, everything's on my Ravelry projects, and I'm using West Yorkshire spinners. Now this yarn is cropping up all over the place. I hear people from all over the world literally talking about West Yorkshire spinners, so I wanted to give it a go. So it's their signature 4-ply, and the colourway, it doesn't actually say the colourway on the ball band, but it does on Ravelry, I think. Blue Lagoon, I think it's called. So there it is. So it's self-striping. Oh, I love self-striping yarn, and ombre and fade and all that kind of stuff. I'm not such a big fan of the speckles and the variegated, but I love self-striping. So here it is. It's beautiful, lots and lots of blues, and I've got another little bra. Look, it's not going to fit me. So I'm a little bit cross with myself because as I started, you'll probably see there's just like the cast on and a bit of other nonsense in another colour. Why didn't I just chop that bit off as soon as I'd realised? Because I'm lazy, that's why. So I've got that still on, and every time I look at it I think, oh, I should have cut that off. Anyway, there we are. So I finished the toe, so I'm up to the number of stitches. I think I must have 36, 72, 30, yeah, 36, something like that. And I wanted to do a little bit of stitch pattern. So can you see there? There's a little slip stitch. There's only about 3 or 4 rounds per colour before the colour changes again. And I wanted to do the geek socks. I don't know if you've seen the geek socks. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. It is brilliant. I made a pair of my Boxing Day socks for my husband in it. And basically you just knit the stockinette sock, but when you change colours, you slip 3 stitches, then knit 1 all the way around, and then the next round you slip 1 and knit 3, and then you go back to normal. So it gives that lovely sort of I don't know, these have been worn once or twice, so apologies for that, but when the colour changes, I love the way that looks. I think it's so beautiful, and I wanted to do that with these socks, but there isn't really enough of a big enough sized stripe, I don't think. The other problem is I can't so easily see, in order to do a pattern like that where you slip stitches on the change, there's 2 things you need. You need there to be a definite colour change, not a sort of ombre where, you know, 1 minute it's purple and then slowly it's kind of red, and then yeah, it is red now. You need to be able to say, right, this is the stitch where it changes. And the other thing you need is you need to be able to spot that change, and this has definitely got the first of those. You know, you can see exactly where it changes, but if you can see the blues there now, I don't know if it'll come out so well for you, but we've got a kind of mint green here, then we've got what I'd call a teal, then there's a royal blue, and then there's the navy blue. Now whilst I look at it here, I can see the difference between the navy blue and the royal blue really clearly, but when I'm knitting I can't, so I can't actually see for certain where the royal blue stops and the navy blue starts. So that's a little bit of a challenge. So that's why I didn't do the geek socks, the other reason. But there's just a little one, this has just got 1 slip stitch in every 4 stitches just for 1 round, and then it's to normal. So I figured that if I did mess it up and I didn't quite see where the transition was, then it wouldn't be too obvious, because there's only 1 stitch. So that's what I'm doing. I am enjoying the yarn. It's a lovely mixture between softness and ruggedness. I feel like it's going to be quite hard wearing. The one thing I don't like though is I'm going from the outside and the inside, something I really shouldn't do because it tends to make a mess, but again I was too lazy to go downstairs and wind it off. But when I'm pulling from the centre, I keep getting these kind of tangles, and there's bits that are felted together in the middle of the ball, and I've got to pull them apart and cut off the felted bit. It's not easy to pull from the centre at all, and that's a bit disappointing, but you know, I'll get over that. So that's that at the moment. I am really quite enjoying that. Yeah, so that's those. What else have I started? Yeah, I've been watching a lot of crochet podcasts recently. Little Drops of Wonderful is one of them, and also Lottie and George. I really love those. So I am really inspired to do. I need more crochet in my life, and this one project with the blankets, the squares, isn't enough. So I need to do something new. which I have done. I've got a bag, my sort of next up box, sorry, of all the yarn I want to use next, and in fact I don't want to buy any more yarn until I've used up all of that, and that's mostly set up into projects already, and there's only one of those which is actually crochet, so I've started with that. This is in my lovely zoo bag from my friend made me. It's fab because it's got a handle on it, and you can just kind of get your project out, leave your yarn inside, and you can stand up and work on it, and it just threads through the hole. I have stood in so many places and knitted with this, so thank you, Liz, for making me that. So I started a new crochet project, and it's not really following a pattern. It's just chevrons, so you just that's the way I think it is. So we're just doing single American single, British double crochets along here, doing a single crochet 2 together here and here, and at the top we're doing 3 single crochets, and again American single crochets, British doubles, 3 into the top one. Very, very simple chevron pattern. It's to be a runner for our table, just to put pots on when they're hot and things. And I'm just using Sirdar cotton. I bought this years ago for this very purpose, and I haven't used it. And so I put it into my up next box because I wanted to find a use for it. When I've got the pattern a bit more established, I'm going to phase in, sorry about crinkling, I'm going to phase in another couple of colourways as well of something a bit similar, Beachcomber it's called, in 2 different colourways, and one of them is kind of grey, one of them is kind of green. I'm not sure if you're going to pick that out, but they're kind of thick and thin, and they're just really lovely subtle shades. So I'm going to put a stripe of those in. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. As usual, I'm just making it up as I'm going along. So that's my crochet project at the moment, but I do feel the need to get some more crochet in my life, and I'm going to have to do that fairly soon. So that's all the new things. There was a couple of other projects that I already had on the needles, but I didn't show you last time. So I'm going to just dive into those now. This is my bag for hubby. This is another of my freeform crochet projects, embroidery projects. I just looked at Pinterest, got an idea, did it. And in fact, I think one of these, yeah, my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter did this one. She was 11 at the time. And then when I'd finished with it, I just made it into a bag, and again I don't expect anybody else to like it, but it doesn't matter, I love it. So in here we have my husband's socks. Now he has seriously big feet, and I'm trying to knit, up to now I've kind of knit him one pair of socks a year for Christmas, but I thought this year he is seriously knit worthy, my man. He loves his socks, so I've decided to knit him one every quarter. So he was very lucky. He managed to get my Christmas Eve socks because they were too big for me, and he also got Boxing Day socks, which were the geeks that I've just shown you, the geek socks. And even so, I decided to make him a spring pair. So here they are. This is a slightly larger bra. I don't like to specify what kind of lady would fit this bra, but here they are. So it's beautiful tealy colour, and I'm just doing a standard stockinette, but I've got a little stitch pattern at the side. So I saw this on a podcast and I don't even remember what the pattern was, but there's just a purl, knit 2, purl 2 here, and then when I got onto the leg it'll be that on the side as well, just a bit more stretch, so that they'll still continue to fit his foot even when he's hot or whatever. He travels a lot, my hubby. So those are a plain stockinette mostly. I only work on them when he's away, so the idea with that being that the more he's away, the quicker his socks grow. This is Drops Fable. I really love this yarn. They've got some really glorious colourways. I'll try and get that right. This is colour 162, and I've got quite a few of these at Yarndale, because I really enjoy them. So we're a little ways down that yet. I've got 84 stitches on that, on a 2.75, which is a US size 2. That's quite a lot of stitches for sure, but it comes down to 42 on each needle, and as a big Douglas Adams fan, the Life, the Universe and Everything connection works for me. So and the other thing was, I mentioned that I've got some scrap blankets on the go, and this is my chunky weight one. So I've shown you my double knit one, which is the crochet hexagons, and I've got a 4-ply sock weight memory blanket. I will show you that at some point, but do you know, I've seen quite a few of those, and there's not much difference between most people's. I've got a slightly different philosophy for mine than a lot of people I've seen, but even so, the blanket looks more or less the same as everybody else's to an outsider. So I'm not in a rush to show you that, but I did want to show you this. So this is my chunky yarn. So again, I've gone into my stash and pulled out all the chunky yarn that I can't find a use for, and I have started doing this. So the project, the pattern is called the 10 stitch blanket. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'll link to that. It's very easy to start. You just knit a square and garter stitch, and then you come out, once you turn the corner, you're meant to use wrap and turn, but I like German short row, so I'm doing that to turn, and then you just knit back and forth just on 10 stitches. That's why it's called the 10 stitch blanket. And you join at the end of each row, and you keep going back and forth, and then you turn the corner, and then you turn it again, and then you keep going back and forth. So it's a lovely quick project. You can just do a small amount and put it down again. So that's what is all my chunky yarn is going into. So now you have pretty much seen all of the projects I have on the go at the moment, and I can update you with them as and when I work on them. So going forward, as I say, I've decided to record this every 2 weeks. I am always getting ahead of myself. I live ahead of myself. That's where I am, and I wasn't planning to do so, but I have already started a Ravelry group. And amazingly, 2 lovely ladies called Kelly and Shannon have already found it. I haven't even announced it anywhere, and they've already found it. And one of them's introduced herself, so that's amazing. So there is now a Ravelry group for the podcast, funkyforty podcast it's called. So you can find that and you can join that. All we've got is a thread that's got episode 1 on it, and you can put any comments or suggestions on there. We've also got a welcome thread, so you can introduce yourself and say where are you from and all that kind of stuff. Feel free to dive on over there. I'd love to see who you all are and to start some interaction, but it's really, really early days yet, so I don't expect tons of people to get over there. But there you go, I went ahead and did it. The other thing I went ahead and did, which I really didn't intend to, was I was watching Little Drops of Wonderful podcast, and she recommended a brand new podcaster called Biff Sugar. So that's Biff, I'll put it on the screen. Biff Sugar podcast, who just recorded her first, and I went over and had a look at that, and I loved it. And as well as doing a podcast and knitting and things, she also dyes some yarn. Now, I'm not a huge fan of well, I don't buy a lot of yarn, as you know, as I've already said, and I don't like the variegated yarns, but there were a couple of sort of tonal and semi-solid colourways that I really loved, so I just popped over to Etsy to have a look, and then I bought 2 skeins. I don't really know exactly how that happened, but it's the first yarn I've bought since September, so and it's now March, so that was quite a surprise to me. But I just, again, getting ahead of myself, wanted to get ready for a giveaway. Now I haven't got enough people yet for a giveaway, but when we do, I will be ready. So I have that all sorted, and her post office has been closed, so she's not been able to get it out to me, but I will be getting it this week because it is now in transit. So next to my podcast, I will have that ready to show you. I've ordered 2 skeins, and I can't decide which one I want, but maybe when I see them I will, and then I'll give away the other one. So very excited about all of that. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I don't think there is. You'll have noticed that I've got the show notes on Ravelry. If that doesn't work for you and you'd rather have them on YouTube, then just make a comment either on the YouTube group itself, you know, underneath there, or on the Ravelry page, or contact me by personal message on Ravelry, funkyforty. If you think, you know, that's easier for you, then go ahead and do that. I'm going to try something fancy with links and see if I can make clickable links up here somewhere. Anyway, so with any luck, that will be easier for you. But if you'd like to see something different, then, you know, just do let me know. So I think that's it. I will see you in a couple of weeks. Happy crafting, and have fun. Bye.